This is the Maine Podcast with Kerry and Evan.
The Maine Podcast is a free media source with a mission to provide better transparency in the market to connoisseurs, medical patients, recreational users, store owners, growers, extractors, and everyone in between. This is made possible through generous support from our sponsors who cover all corners of the great state of Maine. Special thank you goes out to Treeline Cannabis, Planet Tim, Watered Roots, Rugged Roots, The Heady Yeti, Tastefully Baked, Cure Cannabis, The Shack 420, Humble Family Farms, Canna Melts, Salty Cultivation, The North Fire, Highbrow, Team Green, Seaworks & Co., Fade Space, Zero Gravity Extracts, Wisely Cannabis, and Stoner & Co. For more information on how you can support those who support us, please visit our website, www.mainepodcast.com, and click our Sponsors tab. Do you see a lot of that out west?
Oh God, yeah.
A lot of that automation levels.
Anything over 100 lights, you kind of had to have it. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, you're not going to see anything of scale that's not like that formation.
Yeah,
yours was probably the biggest grow I saw without automation. Mm-hmm. It was like
yeah,
straight like
right.
hand watering. So.
Yeah, that must have been tempting.
I mean, it's still there. I mean, we're going to automate Portland, and I have half of Auburn automated. And we will go to full, depending on the plant, how you do. I mean, if you're still going to do the large plant model, it's absolutely fine to hand water. I mean, the boys have done that within the first hour of the day.
Yeah.
But anytime you're going to go to a small plant model, it's literally impossible to, because you're taking your watering time from an hour to 4, so it didn't make sense.
So wait a minute, you talked about the small plant size. Are you talking about like the little ones, like going that size?
Yeah.
And that's what it was out west a
instead
lot,
of-
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like just really like footers or
So we're
not
going
even?
from
Am I right on that about the size?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going from a 15-gallon pod to a 2-gallon pod.
Yeah.
So that's the big, and it helps too with what I'm seeing. I mean, there's pros and cons to any of it, but it's like we'll say at the end, I'm seeing, let's say, like an OG base strain with a weaker root base, something like that. It's been amazing because now you don't have to, certain varieties won't grow in the model that we do with the large plant that we're noticing. Like we're about to release runts this summer. You can't do that large model, so we have a ton of it on the small scale.
How come you can't do runs? Is it the lineage? Is it part of what?
It doesn't want to drink. It's a lanky plant.
Yeah.
It's and it's one of those ones too that like if you don't do a complete leaf pull, the beautiful color of runts purple will be on the tops. The bottoms will be green. It will look like a completely different flower. So you're like separating them anyway. And from the consumer, they're like, they'll say that it's not the same thing, even though we know it is, but it's, you know what I mean? So it's just different farming techniques to it. So it made sense to do it on a smaller scale. I mean, smaller plant model.
Yeah. So it gets that true hue
Yeah.
that you're looking for. What strain was it? Golden Cobra that used to do that would have a purple and then some green. Do you remember back in the day?
I'm trying to think. There's a few of them that would definitely.
Or they
like
were,
that.
but some of them were
anything
remarkable.
That didn't get direct light will give you that pigment change, and it's like, and we learn too. And the hard part with that, let's say for instance, that smaller root base, when you do a heavier leaf pull on them on a bigger plant, now they're hurting even more on their uptaking of the water. So it's like it's such a fine balance, man. Yeah. And I think people don't realize how tough it is to get that proper bag appeal on certain varietals. In what we're doing, we're taking half of the pounds and whatever pre-roll or whatever it is. So it's still the same herb and it still tastes the same. It just looks completely different.
The inclusion of what you put into what's going to be on the shelves too is. Well, you always paid attention to that too, though,
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always about making sure that you were given like the finest looking product.
I think it's important. I think for us, it's like, especially as a grower, you're sitting there and you're looking at the product all the way through from start to finish, and you want the end consumer to have that best experience. experience, you know. And we found it's even hard now. It's like we get a lot of flack as far as not having our product in jars. Well, that's tough. That's hard at that scale. That's so hard at that scale. I mean, think about what we're doing now. I mean, if you're taking down that much and then putting in all the jars, I need a warehouse just for the jars. And then on top of that, we have a lot of women that work for us, and they're the ones doing the drops at the store. You know what 10 pounds of jars is like?
No, that's actually a really good point. It's like 128 eighth jars, I think, is what's in a pound. That weighs a shit ton, and that's a lot to be moving around.
1 pound, too,
yeah,
you know?
1 pound. And with a volume 3 stores, having people lugging around, you'd almost have to have a dedicated team just to move jars and shit like that. So,
and that's been and trust me, when I get my herb, I take it out the bag and I put it in a jar. I get it. No, I get it. I do get it, but
it doesn't change how you have. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to change how you're putting it together for other people. I think people are going to take care of the product that they buy.
Yeah.
I would.
And we're trying to on the back end to do a better job to make sure that miler's open, that it's really that it gets that air in there so it stays, you know what I mean, so it won't squish on
it's like
there.
a chip bag, a little bit of cushion to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So back in the day, I think the best meme I seen was from Planet Dawn, and it was like, this is what your herb looks like in a plastic bag, and it was like a meme with Spider-Man's head all warped, and it was just like, he's right, you know, and
it can happen.
It can happen. So. But from a logistics standpoint, they got to understand where we're coming from too. It's I don't know. We'd need Sean's truck all the time to haul around jars. It's just not feasible.
In a trailer.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it was when we were since me and you switched everything over to jars. I was like, holy fuck, that's a shitload of jars, and we're just outfitting the store, and it was still, the volume wasn't even close to, obviously.
No, they're full. I mean, we have these bags designed with all of our license numbers, the proper wording, this, that. I mean, they've been designed absolutely perfect, and approved. We mailed one to OMP, and they flipped it over and read it and brought it back and sent it back to us and said, add this, we add that, and did this. Now they're perfect. Now to recreate that whole thing for all these jars, because it would be a different label, it would be a sticker, it would be more labor, it would be more time, it would be more everything.
So you guys don't even have the sticker anymore. The bag comes printed.
The only thing we sticker is the strain. We put the round Rugged Root strain sticker on there.
No, that's pretty cool then.
Because we put our manufacturing license on there, our cultivation license on there.
Yep.
We didn't at the time put a store number on there because we didn't have a store number to put on there.
Yep.
But you have to have a designated store number.
For adult use.
Every
step of adult use has a license number.
And it's more individual, like correct me if I'm wrong, but as adult use, like you really have to track what each individual patient is getting. I mean, now there has to be some sort of tracking, but so like for Flow Hub, I know on like the medical side, the barcode is kind of applicable to the entire batch of versus adult use, each individual barcode is specified to that specific product.
It's a batch number.
Yep.
So, I mean, we haven't actually broken into the barcode world yet.
Yeah.
We probably will. Mm-hmm. But it tells you on there, all of the sticker we put on there has all of the batch number, THC content, past testing.
Because everything has to be tested for rec too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
And even when we take stuff to our lab, I mean, we have to add that license number on there. Mm-hmm. And if we bring it back to Auburn, we have a manufacturing license in Auburn, we have to add that license number to there. So you have your cultivation license, your manufacturing at the lab, your manufacturing where we packaged it, and the store where it was sold.
And all that has to be on
All
there.
that has to be on there.
Jesus.
Do you, without getting you guys in hot water, do you feel like that's overregulation? Or if you could tweak it, would there be ways that you could tweak it?
Well,
the system that would make sense. I mean, part of this, I understand why they would want each step documented, because at any one point you could probably infiltrate or add a different product if you wanted to that was an outside source, but claim it's yours, or vice versa. But
I think what they're doing is good as far as they want to work with you.
Yep.
I think everything there at some point is going to become cumbersome enough where you can inadvertently get yourself into trouble without knowing. I did the other day. I did a metric no, because I really thought I was right. We sent our material to the lab, our own lab, to have processed.
Oh, right.
And you have to transfer that in metric. And then, we knew it had to be packaged and labeled and stickered and everything properly done at the lab under the cameras of the manufacturing license. So we did that. We brought a crew down. We did it all perfect. And then I transferred it back to myself in metric to our warehouse in Auburn. Well, you can't go that way. So they called right away and said, you can't. So we had to transfer it back, and we brought it back to Portland. It's just those. It's just those little weird
nuances
things.
of it.
So they're like paying attention to the point where they saw a mess.
Yep.
They called you right away, like, "Hey, you can't do that."
Yeah,
Wow. So they're really on it.
Within an hour and a half, they had talked to me.
It'll flag it in metric, then they'll.
Yeah.
It's like something. Hey, this shouldn't move this way. And
I just thought I was right as far as it's if you look at it from the extraction lab's a different business,
Right.
And so I'm looking at it like I'm taking my product back. I'm
And
not
what did
taking.
they?
I'm
How
not
did they
taking
want you to
someone
do
else's.
it?
Huh?
How did they want you to move?
Well, the way you have to do it is you have to go from, like, we were the cultivators.
Yep.
So then we sent it to our lab. Now we're the extractors.
Yep.
And now I have to sell it to ABC store, DEF store, and I have to call the lab and say, I'm selling 30 of this, 40 of that, 20 of these, 19 of those, 17 of those to ABC store. And then the lab has to
make it manifest.
and transfer that to them, and they have to come get it.
And so you can't just do it through under your umbrella of.
Oh,
You're
you
right.
can't.
You can't
It's
send it
just
from the lab back to the grow.
And then sell it
Right.
out of the grow. Essentially,
Has
it has to
from either
go.
a lab to a manufacturing license or to a storefront.
Oh God,
Right.
yeah. So that.
So it just becomes, so if somebody comes in and processes 100 pounds of material, unless they have a manufacturing license, now we're stuck holding on to this stuff.
We have some of that right now, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, they might call, granted, they paid for the processing, but I don't want to be responsible for holding on to their product. It's their product. It's a good product.
Yeah.
Go take it and sell it. So that's a little bit of a cumbersome step, and maybe they'll see that in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe by input, maybe by your
They
input.
talked
by,
to us
by
very
people who are
well.
involved
I
in-
had a conversation yesterday with OMP about we're trying to get our final license for manufacturing approved in Auburn. So here we are in the middle of a warehouse. Nobody's in there except for approved people with licenses, with credentials, with everything. And they came in to do our inspection. Then they called and says, well, you have to separate your adult use from medical, which we do. And they knew that. They saw how we did it because we did it on their recommendation. They said, well, if you separate it and label it differently. So we did exactly what they say. And then they read into a little bit more and said it had to be in a lock cabinet and you can't be able to see it.
Can't see it.
So I'm like, what? You gotta. So I sent them a picture of these cages that roll around, and you can lock them. They're $900 cages, and they're like, yeah, that's great, but you can see in it. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Stuff to do with anything.
Now what? Like, well, it says you're not supposed to see it. I was like, well, so you want the camera so you can see everything, but you can't see in it.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I guess. So they're talking about, they have a meeting tomorrow about that topic.
Yeah.
Because it's just something they're fighting themselves internally on that one. And here we are, we're just trying to get a license and do it right. So
They are open to suggestions.
they are. They're awesome
I
about
will
that.
say that. Like, for instance, let's say if we have an issue or they're willing to work with us, you can call them on the phone and have that conversation in real time. It's not like they understand that. Again, we keep saying we're pioneering this for this state.
No, you're
now,
right.
Right now. So I don't think that it'd be foolish of us to think, oh my God, they have all their ducks in a row. It's
Still
not.
a learning curve. Is
We're
what
all
you're saying.
learning together.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm grateful for the platform. I think we all are to be able to sell cannabis as a legitimate business. So, doing the steps to work with them together, we're willing to do that all the way.
However tedious
Yeah.
and however maybe that they might kind of rub each other the wrong way until it's figured out
Sure.
that they
Well,
do that.
everybody
They
up there
cause a
has
lot of
common
friction.
sense.
Sure.
And they do. I know that might not be the popular vote, but they really do. And everybody's just trying to figure it out too. We come up against this, and now tomorrow they're going to meet about this and say, "Oh yeah, that doesn't make sense." Because nobody's going to come out the gate and make it perfect.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There's always going to be tweaks and twerks and fixes. So that's just what we're doing. That's no big deal.
It seems like the current culture too, and we've had a lot of discussions about this, some of which I've had to edit out because I get like too down a rabbit hole, but it seems like everyone has really made them the enemy, and anything about them that you say in a positive light, like, hey, they helped me with this, it's like, the community's trying to condemn you right away.
That's
But
fine, but they're not. I mean,
Yeah.
They want to help you. They'll tell you, we're not here to beat your door down. If you're doing backyard hood rat shit,
Yeah.
they'll beat your door down. But, if you're trying, they
Yeah.
want to come in and they want to help you. They want to sit down with you and say, well, this has to be this way and this has to be this way, and you can get there by doing this.
Yeah, that's what we talk
They're-
about too. It seems like they're
They
trying to
should
have
come
working
down here on
relationships.
this because they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
DJ, you had experience out in Colorado with when it shifted. Do you mind giving me an idea of time frames and stuff like that? And what was happening within the cannabis industry in Colorado,
Yeah,
correct?
for sure. I first got out there in 2011. I think the voting happened in 2013 and shifted to adult use in 2014. But out there, medical, if you had caregivership, medical storefront, any of that stuff, was still seed to sale tracking with metric.
Was.
Yes, it wasn't like Maine. Maine's kind of the wild, wild west with that aspect. So, even for med out there, you still had metric. Most people had a POS system and all that. So kind of the standard protocol out there was, seed to sale tracking. Everything had to be tested, whether it was medical, recreational. And it's, just something I'm kind of used to be honest.
They didn't have a prolonged period of time like we did or any kind of period of time where a lot of this wasn't being tracked out there in Colorado?
No, not for
I guess I
registered
wasn't paying attention enough at
it's
the
weird.
time,
The
and I didn't
voting
know it.
happened, and everything was implemented within six months to a year. So there
6 months
wasn't,
to a year.
a 3 or 4 year wait like in Maine. So no, it was pretty standard.
Somebody had I had a guest on here who had spent some time out in Colorado, and he was there during the transition, I suppose, of when there was a medical program, and then when new regulations hit it. And he mentioned something about went from, was it 500 square foot to 500 cubic foot for a caregiver, or that's what he alluded to, or maybe fabrication of the numbers, but to the point where it's like more back to closet growing was allowed, or smaller
it wasn't
scale.
the case when I was out there.
No?
That might have been the specific municipality or something like that.
Oh, it was broken up like that?
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
it was.
You had certain municipalities like Colorado Springs, where I was at, was a lot more strict, and everyone moved their grows down to Pueblo, where it was just you could do whatever the hell you wanted.
So we should
Sounds like a
expect
town
that
that could do whatever you
here.
want.
It already
Yeah.
has happened here, and it's probably going to stay that way, right? It's not going to be anything where every city is, you could expect it. It's sort of like dry towns. It's going to be all over the place like that too, isn't it? Through the state.
Well, I mean,
Some are going to regulate harder, like we've seen on a Portland scale for medical and so on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that down south. I mean, there's pretty much no opt-in communities south of Biddeford right now. You have
None making themselves available.
really, you got Elliott for storefronts. I think
Yeah.
that's about it. North and South Berwick, but nothing on the coast, pretty much south of Portland.
So it's normally like, I know Kittery's in a
They might
situation
be.
right now, right? They're trying to push
trying to,
forward,
yeah.
but it would never have happened unless existing business owners in that area kind of started making themselves more available to city.
Yeah,
we've seen
for
it,
sure.
yeah.
It happens everywhere. It has the whole
Yeah.
time for you guys too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could see that other ones that we're in, like now that the municipalities are getting involved, on the inspection end, they want to collect their revenue as well. So I think that's what they're seeing. Okay, they're seeing that this municipality is charging X amount of dollars. They want that stream, so they're going to put some kind of inspection force team together to get that
Like,
going.
I feel like you talked to a lot of people, and they're like, "Dude, I could have set up a grow like 10 years ago. No one would even show up. You just like kind of filled out their paperwork, sent it in, and now it's like they want you to have like an architect, the city planner, so the whole 9 yards. I don't know all the, but they've definitely they've seen, I think, everything that goes on there, and they're trying to make sure they can keep it under wraps as best as possible. But it's definitely been a big evolution from kind of doing whatever you want to having some real infrastructure.
Ryan, yeah, very good point. And I think you shared a story with me once, and I don't know if you'd want to go into it or share a little bit more. One of the One of the things that you said that you would do if you got into the cannabis industry to the level that you wanted to get into is it had to be where you could depart from the gray area.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And your family kind of put you in that spot.
Well, I mean,
But not that you weren't willing. Not that you weren't willing. I'm just saying.
I think they put up with, decades of my nonsense too.
Sure.
I've been passionate about the plant you guys know me for such a long period of time that I'm 41 and we're talking 20 years of it. So, without getting into too much detail, that tells you a lot.
Sure, yeah.
So for their sake, they knew the passion that I had for it and how I was always into it on all levels and the things that I was doing to just evolve the plant and be involved with it, and they stood by me. So when there was a chance for legitimacy, I thought I owed it to them. It's just like, all right, you stood behind me, and I told them too at the time. I says, listen, this is something that I love, and I'm willing to accept the repercussions to my actions. And they understood that, and to because they knew I loved it. So on the other hand, I was like, well, this is all going forward. I have no reason to not be in this area. And for them to stand by me this whole time, I owed it to them to stay in. I've got children now, and
It still allowed you to have that go for your passion.
Yeah,
which was in the garden.
That's right.
It has been. It's been your life for
that's it
quite a long time,
forever. And as
and
long
you like
as,
it, Merce.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And I tell Sean that all the time, and I'm in there, and I'll be a Sunday morning and I'm in there and it's like everybody else is doing whatever. But for me, it's just like, this is the place that I find serenity. I'm in there and the noises of the garden and everything to it and just being immersed in it. It's like, for me, it's the only time where I can like drown out everything. Now as business owners, at a certain scale, you got to realize that you're now a problem solver. That's what you do. You're not necessarily, hey, Ryan, you're a grower. No. I manage a lot of people.
You like to oversee it now, at least.
It is, but at the same time, if I get that moment to be like, all right, I'm going to shut the door in here and shut out the outside world, get in there with the plant.
Get a little dirty.
And just see, and that's what I tell the gardeners too, because there's so many people out there, they're like, hey, I'm going to follow charts, so I'm going to follow this. And I'm the exact opposite. I say it to the guys all the time. I said, what's the plant telling you?
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. That's what I really want to get in those rooms and be like, look at the expression of the plant, so I can see what it's going through and work off that. And it's just to be in that. That's why we all do this from the start. You know what I mean? When we're getting there and we're growing the plant and we're giving its best expression and we're seeing these things, that's what really gets me going. So when I get those moments, which are few and far between now.
So you're still able to spend a good amount of time in veg and flower?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you live
In both?
Yeah, I do. And that's, for me, it's like there's nothing else to. I want to do this forever, no matter what end of it is. I said this to DJ, just the other day. In the end, I have children that are growing, so I chase them around and stuff. But at the same time, it's like if I could ever just have like a 20 lighter that I just go in there and try to push new genetics forward. And I was talking to Melting Pot about that the other day, and too, we just geek out on those things. And it's like that for me makes me happy, to be in there and really say, hey, we created something here that the general public is going wild for. We're also, progressing the plan on these ends that we're trying to do. For me, that's special,
Do you think that it's like you staying in the garden, having such a hands-on role has allowed you guys to scale up and also keep some quality? Because I feel like there's a lot of times you see a lot of companies scale up and then it's almost like their head grower kind of takes more of a managerial role, doesn't really not so hands-on, and then you can kind of see quality dip a little bit. But it seems to you guys, you really scaled up and were able to keep, if not somewhat improve, what you guys have been doing.
I will benefit some of that to the build out, like the rooms that Sean designed and what we came in through were state of the art. That it was like the LEDs. So we were growing, under Gavitas, and to go to that switch, I was nervous at first, but to see that the expression that they were getting from that spectrum was phenomenal. And then we'll put it this way, from being in the Marine Corps, my leadership was always, I want to be with the boys. Right. I want to show them. I'm more of a leader of, I'll lead by example.
You're in the thick of it with them.
Yeah, I'll mop the floors in the bathroom, so that type of thing with them, it shows them, because what people forget is we're still farming. You know, yeah, because it's inside and we take beautiful pictures and you see them on social media. The boys are still there at 7. They leave at 5. Like, we are farming. This is hard work. So in order to have motivation to do that, you got to be in there, like, pushing that forward, showing them that you're excited, you know, teaching them. That's the other thing. My teaching style with the guys is I'm working right side by side and explaining the process as I do it. And being excited about that process and showing that if we do this, this is the end result. And this is how we do, you know what I mean? And all those things, it seemed to work for us. I don't know if it does for everybody. And it's, you know, being in the garden all the time, things change at that scale as well. So saying, like, if, you know, when you have problems,
Yeah, you're
they
dealing with
escalate.
They really keep you up at
larger
night.
scale.
Yeah, for real.
no,
So
I can imagine.
you have to have eyes on the room.
It had to be a
Every
little
day.
daunting to go from, and it's not to say that you weren't growing at a good size in spatially speaking, or prior to when, as a caregiver. You still have a whole new set of issues now because of scope, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's
And you're bettering it with the lighting and the air filtration and all of these things, but are the problems that come not necessarily from the room now, or
well, they do,
is it
because you
partly
gotta remember this, and this is the hardest part. So we moved into a new space.
Yep.
We do new things, and anybody knows that in order to really dial in a grow, you got to be in that space for at least a year.
Yeah, your first 2 grows, you get lucky.
That's it. Yeah, for
Yeah,
real.
I got lucky on my first two.
And then from there on out,
I didn't dial in the barn. It
he's
didn't happen
right
after
though.
that.
The first go on any room, you're like, holy shit. Wow. But then you chase your tail after that
Yeah.
because it's about dialing in that room. Because you're going, what people don't realize is the seasons outside affect the seasons inside.
100%.
Yeah.
They do. So with that being, you have to go on there. And for us, yeah, we battled all kinds of things. And for some reason, this industry that we're in, the scrutiny level is amazing. Like, for us to do this at a scale and then to be no issues, that's a very difficult process. So, you know, I can say my people are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have great quality control. Did we have issues in the garden here and there? Absolutely. You know, to say like you're getting all your vegetables from Shaw's and there's not one that has an issue with it.
Yeah.
But do you call Shaw's and tell them that there's an issue on it? Because I hear it on the other end. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
for us, it's like we're doing the best we can. And it took me a full year to be like, all right, we have it dialed in. We have all these systems in place. And now, you know, you never eradicate anything, okay? You're able to have systems in place
You
where
move along with it.
Yeah, you move along with it. So
Controlling the pressure.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what it is. It's about controlling the threshold of whatever you have.
Yep.
And we're really doing a good job of that now. The herb is better than it's ever have. It has, you know, certain strains had density problems. So you'd see sometimes you'd have spots of botrytis or things like that. There's other things out now that we put in place that just, you know, work with ions that fight things like that. So it's like, it's great now to see.
Oh, ions. I remember hearing about that tech
Yeah.
a couple of years back, a few years back.
Yeah, Innovative Solutions has a thing out right now that we use in the garden that works really well. I haven't seen it hurt any of the terpene levels or anything like that. Negative and positive ions that are released on the canopy to fight any kind of spore or anything
Onto
like
the
that.
canopy.
Yeah, so you put them in there, and what it is, and also has a plate on the back that kind of heats in it, like it micronizes hydrogen peroxide as well.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Your terps have gone up since you started using them.
That's what I'm saying.
Very
So-
evident.
How would that have happened? Just because?
Cleaner.
I mean,
healthier
he just got it
environment.
more dialed in. In small plant model, I've seen a lot better terpene expressions from the lab from extraction from the stuff. So
You know, I think, and you bringing it up and talking about gardens, and I'm sure you experienced it as well, DJ. Like any time you're going to go into a new setting, I mean, I've never known a grower to go in and hit it balls out from that point forward too, regardless. Or there's always blips. There's always a learning curve.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, at that scale too, you are dealing with a lot more people who you are instructing as well.
Yeah.
Some with experience and some not as much. But hopefully everybody's getting. But that's just something that happens when you first grow into a position, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're
So
building
a lot of people are learning together. It's not for the moment so much
Yeah.
as it's for the long haul.
Well, there's no SOPs to what we're doing.
No.
We're building a company together from the ground up. So it's not like we can go back and there's a rule book and we're going to be like, hey, you need to do this at this step. No, we're developing as we go. and obviously you're going through people and things like this are happening. It's just, I think, I don't want to say lucky, but I also think that we have an amazing core of people that are all willing to sacrifice for the same goal. They understand that, like, if we're going to look at this 10 years from now, we're going to be like when this cannabis industry rolled out, we all did this together. As a company, we pushed forward and we made a mark in the state. And that to me, I think there's no cooler thing.
Yep.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, how many jobs that you're going to have that you're going to sit back at and be like, wow, we really made some sort of a difference.
I pioneered something too at the same time, you know. So yeah. Well, you guys talked a lot about scaling up the grow. I think like that was pretty cool. But the coolest thing is like the scale up of the store, you know, because we all got to see it like such a small, immature stage, and obviously the cannabis industry has boomed, you know, by probably I would assume hundreds of percents for a lot of people. What is like the challenges that you've seen scaling up in a store? Because a grow is one thing, and then not to say that it's not important, but a store you're dealing with all this inventory. It's just, I feel like there's just crazy amounts of moving parts of product that's not yours, or spending money on people's product, things like that. Have you noticed a really big challenge with trying to scale up to now going on 3 stores in Portland and dealing with the inventory controls and all that type of thing?
That would be more on Sean's end. He deals with that end of the fence as far as like the inventory side. The only thing that I could say for that reason is, and this is what we built Sensimilla on, as you guys know, has been brands. Like, we were always a huge proponent of like, yeah, I love what we do, but we know as being consumers that it's so cool to go into a spot and be like, all right, we have the best growers in the state. So I think that's the only thing, is finding like the rotation of growers within, you know, to supply the stores, you know, and then just the personalities that go with it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you guys know all the boys.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and you know, and then, you know, having business minds, all of that stuff. But as far as like the inventory, that Sean would know more of how they implemented that.
I think we grew slow enough that it wasn't a big hurdle moving on to the next stores. We just kind of replicated what we had, and thankfully, when we opened our Auburn store, it was slow enough so that we could ease into it. I think if we would have taken 3 stores and opened them at the speed they're moving at now, it would have been pretty tough.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you both know, when we started over here, I mean, you know, we were excited on some pretty small days. We were really excited. So it grew nicely. I think if we would have stepped in and had it as busy as we are now, there'd be an issue. Because that's certainly not any of our forte to be inventory control and coming up with different things. And it's thankfully been slow enough that it's moved along, and the people, the workers at the store, the bud tenders at the store are, you know, consumers, so they're into it, and they can, you know, kind of steer people, and they can bring new products to our eyes and say, hey, you know, I saw some of this on this, and we're like, oh, that's great, we'll try it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we've been able to grow that slow enough. Well,
and you do it to give credit. I feel like everyone, Brittany has, I feel like, done a great job of like trying to hone in that ship and, you know, and keep it moving. So, you know, I feel like it's important. Ryan mentioned a lot the team that you got behind that is like driving you forward, and she seems like she's been a real crucial member of that. So
we're so proud of our team. We'll say that. I mean, we have, you know, for instance, some really young people that stepped into roles that just showed like their ability. Like we would be nowhere without the team, and we know that. I mean, these people have really just dug in and has sacrificed for the sake of the company. And it's like you watch them grow as people at the same time. I mean, we're talking people in their early 20s, and you're watching them like really step into managerial positions and watching them, you know, have people under them and how they're reacting. It's pretty cool to see, you know, and I think that this industry is only allowing that. And I say that I don't know a lot
I
about
agree.
other ones,
I agree
but
with that.
No, yeah.
you got to think about this cannabis industry. How many 20-something-year-olds are coming in, stepping into these roles, having
For sure, it's really
departments.
attractive to.
Yeah.
It was
It's setting up a lot of people too, I think, for the future. Because there's, and to speak to what you said, there's not a lot of industries where 20-something-year-olds can come and not only build a resume, get crazy amount of experience, learn things that they never really would working at like a supermarket. They're getting more responsibilities and stuff like that. And I've noticed it firsthand. I think a lot of
They're
other people
impactful.
are. Yeah,
They're
they feel
impactful in a
empowered
good-
too. It's an
Yes.
industry I feel like that a lot of people that are like on the ground level feel really empowered because, like Sean said, they're the ones that tell the people that are ordering, hey, we need to get this. And most of the time, you guys listen because if they're saying it,
Right.
they're probably hearing it firsthand or vice
Think
versa.
about this too. How many times have you went from a prior job home excited to dig into a project about something? I mean, this is something that it's a culture, so they're living it anyway. So almost a lot of times they're so immersed that they don't even know they're working. They're like, holy cow, I want to find this, or I want to bring this on the shelf. I love this grower, and let's bring him in store and see the reaction to it. Because this is how cool is it as a bud tender, let's say, they're the line of defense from the general public, and they find these things that they enjoy, put them on the shelf, and then they can stand behind it at the counter.
Yep.
It's just it's a cycle to it. And to see some of these other people, like I said, still being young, and Brittany, for example, she's still young, and she has 3 stores under her belt, and she's a boss. She's a fucking boss.
Yeah.
And we love to see her grow. And
I remember when she was the third hire sort of that was running it, and she was only working Saturdays, but you could tell like that woman whipped the place into shape.
love it.
And
Yeah.
just in that one period of time, and she created a nice following on that day too, I remember. And so that connection, that desire to succeed was emblematic of a lot of things that you guys are, right? I mean, she's a perfect fit for what you're thinking.
I think she's very motivational to people too, because anyone that knows Brittany knows it doesn't just stop at the store. She's single mom. I mean, she's always working. I mean, I remember when I worked with her, it's like she'd buzz around, run her kid to cheer practice, come back and check on us and do everything she needed to do. So, I mean, yeah, she has her head on a swivel to say the least. And I think, she's been crucial and you guys obviously agree in helping the company grow for sure.
Yeah, amazing.
I think one of the things that I want to touch back on, Sean, is Evan sort of steered it towards not necessarily like the economics of it, but you've made moves at the right time to invest and sometimes pushing forward to try to get the company, to develop the company into a position that you want to be in, correct, on the market? That's been the overall goal. Like we talked about getting to 3 stores.
Well, I think he's saying, like, for layman's
Talked
terms, is
about
that
the
when you're that
cultivation.
big, it's so easy for people to be like, hey, that guy must have an investor and out-of-state money or something like that. And that's one thing I think we wanted to point on because, talking to you guys, it's really just been you two, from the beginning. And so I feel like that's important for people to hear is that it's possible. There's people doing it in the state of Maine, and it's good to have, because it's not like you guys, we've seen it with other people like Jay from Highbrow and stuff like that. It's easy when a company grows rapidly, is very successful, and is doing things the right way for people to kind of, cast judgment on it. But it, like I say, it really has just been you guys from the beginning. And you guys have just constantly, reinvested in yourself and the patients and the community. And that's what's led you guys to where you're at now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's true. There was definitely no trust funds, no investors. Ryan and I went through high school together, and so we date back that far.
You've been attracted to the cannabis industry for a while, though, right? Is
Yeah,
that fair to
no,
say?
for sure.
Yeah, I
Yep,
mean,
for sure.
Yeah, okay. And I knew that about you. I knew, it was just one of those.
Yeah,
That you already had an inclination towards it. You already wanted to be involved in it.
for sure.
so-
I love entrepreneurism. I love business. I love local business. I really do. I thrive on it. I positioned myself, with a lot of hard work pretty well to be able to handle all this. I, after college, I worked in my profession of engineering for many years, and it was a very good, very, very good job. And that allowed me to purchase a lot of real estate, and I slowly did. I started buying apartments in 2003, and I haven't stopped. And I've just really positioned myself. I've always just paid down debt and
Continue to
paid.
build and build on yourself.
Always. So, when it came to, and then when
I think you mentioned to me once before, and for me, it was just a different way of thinking, and it's a simple thing. And anybody who thinks business understands. You would refinance on a place so you could invest and buy off the equity into another apartment, and you were able to grow that fairly rapidly,
I did.
and it was a really good move.
Yep. And I mean, I didn't do any outside investment like 401k and
One would pay
stock
for the
markets
other,
and things like that. I
always
just
something on the
literally
line.
dumped every extra penny I had into real estate. I lived in one of my apartments for years, and then finally bought a house. But until then, I put money back into all my real estate. And then when it came time for Ryan and I to pick up, really look at each other and say, well, it's either go big or go home at this point.
Yeah.
And we decided to put our necks on the line. I mean, I was able to, I had a second mortgage on every single piece of property, including my personal home.
Yeah.
I put every single thing I had on the line, everything. And that was, my stuff personally. It's not from my parents. It's not from an investment group. It's all me.
It's 20 years of hard work and your own money leading up to that exact moment.
And that
Gotta
allowed
kind of
us
respect
to
somebody for that kind of grift in the sense that you're always willing to put everything on the line.
I knew I wouldn't. The only thing I told Ryan this 100 times.
Can't make you crazy. At some point, you
Oh, it
stop
definitely
doing
made you
that, I'm
crazy.
thinking,
No.
but-
It keeps you up at night. It keeps you worried. I mean, you got mouths to feed, you got bills to pay, and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I knew I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
So I figured, this is it. It's there's an
Do this
opportunity
or
here to make a
skip
mark.
the whole thing.
Yeah, there's
Right.
an opportunity here to get into an industry that's just skyrocketing. As technology-wise goes, expansion-wise, it's all good. So we were able to get our facility in Auburn, purchased, and then as we built out in there, we would go one room at a time, and it would pay for the next room. It would pay for the next room. It would pay for the next room.
Yeah.
And sweat equity is what we've got. We'd be there on a Saturday night hanging clips on a 14-foot ceiling and sweeping floors and painting floors and just cleaning up, for the contractors and anything we could do to cut costs, and not cheap out, but to cut costs. Nothing went through there without me looking at it and saying, okay, that's money wisely spent. And then we had that up and running, and then we literally just saved. And that afforded us the opportunity to, do our next expansion in the Portland area, again, without investors, without anything like that. There's no trust funds down there either.
And you put yourself in a prime location. That was going to be the important part. Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
We wanted to be vertically integrated from the ground up. I guess you could say the only thing we don't do now is edibles. That's literally the one little aspect we don't do for ourselves.
We both burn. Well, he's a good cook. I burn toast.
We had a great opportunity to meet and be friends with DJ. His knowledge in the extraction world is far superior to ours. So we had to, everybody surrounded themselves with the right smart people. And then we just kind of moved on from there. I know there's tons of grumbling of things in the Portland area, and
What do you hear? What do you sometimes hear?
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh,
shit, I
just-
haven't heard any of this.
Well,
What's going on now?
who represents us legally and who invested in us and things like that. And
You're owned by Curaleaf, right?
we're owned by some other company. I don't even know who these people are. And I really don't. I don't. I have to ask.
That was good.
I don't.
I like that.
I swear to God, I have no idea. Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit? You're going to do your thing, and that's what you're going to do.
I've always had that.
No need to pay attention to that.
Because I'm sensitive, and if I can stay in my lane and I can focus on what we're doing, all this grumbling is just kind of like background noise that I try my hardest not to let affect me.
Yeah.
Would it affect me if I paid attention to it? Probably. But I don't, because I know the absolute truth. I know that in my head. I know it. So I'm fine. They can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Ryan and I literally started taking a paycheck, I think, less than 2 months ago. And we've been doing this for years.
Yes.
You know, because Ryan's wife has a good job. I have my apartments. It's kind of fed our families for this long.
Yep.
And we've put every penny back into our stores, our cultivation, and now we're moving on to building another cultivation. We've just, you know.
Even from day one at the lab. I mean, literally, you guys acquired it, and the first thing they did was put, a bunch of capital into it to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, the day after the lab, we ordered
It wasn't
$300,000
seen
worth
as just
of
buying it and letting it operate as it
this
was.
is
No.
You wanted to
we
make
improve
changes
How
and
do we
improve
make
it.
better, get it more efficient.
So we took the input of DJ and his staff at the lab, the workers that he's had for a while, and we just, next day spent $300,000 in getting more extraction equipment to be able to provide quicker and better service for entities in the state. Because, that was one of the biggest grumblings that we had heard prior to the official acquisition is just, hey, there's a lag period that takes, well, there was because there wasn't enough equipment. Now there's enough equipment.
Yeah.
We could
Right.
hammer some stuff out now, and that's what we wanted to do because it's all about convenience.
Right.
So first of all, we've got a great quality, and we're going to make it convenient for people to pick up the phone, say, hey, we need you to do this, and hang up the phone, and they forget about it because we take care of the rest. And that's just what we've been trying to do. So all of that has afforded us the opportunity to keep it local. There's no investors. Did we borrow private money as a bank? Absolutely, on some things.
Sure.
But that doesn't make them an investor. That makes
Right.
them a bank. You know what I mean? Because that's what they did. They lent us a small amount of money to get us going, and we've paid that back, and they're gone.
You brought up a good point though too. I feel like everyone's always pointing fingers, and then we're like, well, why is there not a unified front? It's like, well, you got Joe Schmo from who knows where, claiming that you got an investor now, or that so and so represents you. And we have a lot of talks about it, too. I felt like sometimes the community has done it to itself. We've almost divided each other just because everyone is so jealous of the success of their neighbor that they're willing to try to cast shade on them just to bring down the whole what they got going on.
100%. So this is the thing that I've noticed and I've struggled with a little bit because as you see on all ends, we've done nothing but support the community any way we could, whether that be putting them on the shelves to uplift people know that if you go into Sensimilla, we do nothing but try to uplift the brand, and they see that the Lewiston Auburn community is a hub of smokers, as we all know. I think that we're overlooked.
Yeah.
Like they're thinking down. No, in Lewiston Auburn, people get down.
Yeah, they do.
So and. For that reason, and even on the extraction end now, we're trying to take their product and give them the best representation of what they have. So with having the grumblings, and this was my concern. It was like, okay, so we were born and raised in this state. We don't have any investors. But we're checking off all these boxes. Is it now that they don't like it because we're scaling too large? Is that the complaint? Because I'll tell you right now, we have over 50 employees, and by the time this is done, we're going to be into the 80, 90, and these are all Maine people with their money staying in the state. What is wrong with that? There's nothing else to come after. That's what we're trying to create here. We want to create longevity within the industry, create jobs for people. There's a lot of families now that are eating off this industry, not because of us. I don't say it like that.
No,
it's because of the fact that we're all doing this as a group and there's some success behind it. So I don't think that's why I get to the point that it's not really about me and my feelings. It's about all these people that are sitting there sacrificing, doing the hard work, and then they see the backlash and I work and I look out for them. And I'm like, that sucks,
Yeah. Well, I've seen it too. I think I saw a job posting for like the Portland bud tenders or something that you're looking for. And like, you guys are paying a real competitive wage too, if you think about it. And I feel like that's what's kind of cool and that's what happens when you have local business people or local businessmen running a business versus a big corporation. At the end of the day, you see in all your employees and you're trying to take care of them and really try to, change their lives moving forward versus just trying to squeeze every last living cent out of them and paying them the lowest you can. So that's one benefit I think of the cannabis industry, especially in Maine, is I feel like it's helped the people that do want to find a job and do want to work in a place that's competitive, it's challenging, and the compensation's great. It's been a good avenue for some.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think if we all were to get together, and we're proponents of any scale of cannabis owners or growers or any of that, I love closet growers. We want to keep that going. Listen, if you have, any proponent that's pushing the plant forward, we are all about it and we support it. I just think that I wish we could all be unified a little more instead of, this internal combustions as far as, like you said, pointing the finger at, well, he's growing to scale, there must be something wrong.
Yeah.
No, we just work a lot.
Maybe they move different than you. Yeah,
we just work a lot. That's for real. Like, you can find us 7 days a week. Either he's in the office pounding stuff, dude, or I'm in the garden running, or DJ's you know what I'm saying? All of the above. It's because we love what we do, and we don't even know what day of the week it is. And we're just doing it because we're so immersed in this company and we're having so much fun and we love, you know what I mean? And it just evolved.
You want to see the success of it. Yes.
Well, and you're also in a time where I feel like a lot of people have used the money that's come into a business on luxuries in life, and you see a lot of vacations, a lot of things like that, versus like you guys have really played it smart. And so that's where I almost think sometimes a lot of jealousy and it's more so like, well, how come I couldn't do that? Well, maybe it's just because there's a difference in and what you want to spend your money on.
Too, Evan. To be honest with you, I told Sean this the other day. I think we're at the perfect age. And I say that, and this is no offense to anybody else. It's like we're in our 40s. Mm-hmm. We understand short-sighted plays now. And we understand, like, at this age, you're not really trying to impress anybody anymore. Mm. Like, I'm not trying to be at some certain status. You know what I mean? So It's like, I wear freaking Birkenstocks, dude, and the clothes that are on top of the pile. Say. You know what I mean? there's no. So that's what I'm saying for us. So it's really not about that. We care about the company, and we want to double down for the sake of the people who are sitting there working hard for us. Yeah. So they have a future in this, and that's important.
Scope and scale of the world around us comes maybe with some, allusions to it too. When people see it bigger, they no longer they feel like, oh, it's another business that came out. Right. So it feels like a misguided reason for attack based off of how large you've been able to build what you're wanting to build, the direction you want to go. And you have aspirations for even more if that's what the successes of the company end up doing in the long run.
If it's for the benefit.
And if it changes on a federal level as well, stuff like that. Why wouldn't you? Because you want to go for it, you're at the perfect age, and you have the right people around you. You're starting to feel like you're building something in a good direction, and it's all about Maine. It's always been all about Maine and the people around in the community. You've done that. It's always been about a circle of people, and how big can you make that circle of people around you?
We've been positive
who want to be involved in the same way you're involved, right?
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. And
it's a great degree of dedication is what it is.
It just seems like it's
so that's going to be tough
fast.
To have to explain that my dedication, our dedication.
I do it for the employees. We do, because we could sit back and be like, you know what, and this brought us to here right now. Because I just said to Evan when we walked in, I says, I know there's social media and there's these platforms that everybody gets to, and they get lost, immersed into their phone, and they think that they have this scale audience. I strictly believe this is why I haven't even come on here. It's like, who the fuck wants to listen to me? Who am I? You know what I mean? And that's the mindset. But also now I got to the point where it's like, man, I think it's good that we come in and tell our story for the sake of the employees, for the sake of everybody, to really see where we come from, you know, and how we really do care about every move that we do make. Some of the players that they put us in line with, let's say, the Hannah Kings or whatever of the world. It's like, that's not us. It's not real. There was an acquisition there that was on the table that would help push the business forward. It has nothing to do with that lady. You know what I'm saying?
I want to talk about that acquisition too, because just obviously there was, like you kind of just mentioned too, a little bit about the Hannah King stuff and whatnot. That was a big drama, but we could touch upon that. It's just, you guys acquired something it's pretty big. That has to be rather stressful process and a complex process. I'm just, I want just a little bit of like enlightenment as far as how that works. What's the stages of that, and how did the ball really get rolling?
Just wanted full integration, right? One step closer to full integration.
We did want full integration, and I wasn't taking that from you. I was just making a joke.
No.
And also, it might be worth noting, DJ, you should like to talk to you about that too, and how you've had to go through your situation with really.
Oh, yeah. No, it was definitely some hell over the last year with that stuff. So,
I thought it'd been a little bit longer than that. Honestly, it feels like it's been forever that you've been in a
couple of years.
In a shitstorm of information.
Yeah, when the ball dropped on the Hannah King thing, I think it was December 2019, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of stuff got twisted. You know, her husband was a business partner of mine at Coast to Coast.
Yep.
Had zero to do with the day-to-day, business of operations of the company, as did Hannah. I mean, she was just our lawyer, essentially. And, we didn't necessarily support what she was saying whenever that stuff happened. But somehow we got called snitches, blah, blah, blah. And all we were trying to do is make good extracts, man.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people stayed loyal to us, including Sean and Ryan. They still processed with us and saw business as business. And, ever since then, the company wanted to kind of shift gears, and the business partners that I had there kind of just wanted to go do their own thing. And we started looking for suitors to, acquire the company, knowing that I was going to stay on and, run the extraction lab, help out with the grow wherever I'm needed. And, we had one or two people that were interested that we had some negotiations with. And, I think I was dropping off some extracts one day in Sean's office, and he said, what would you guys think if we started, talking about this? And, the ball started rolling from there. And, it was a very slow process. We really went through a lot of different scenarios, different numbers and things like that. And they were the perfect partnership, in my opinion. Between the other people we were talking to, it just didn't seem like that was going to be a good fit long term. And I've always respected Ryan and Sean and their work ethic and what they've done with the business and growing it from day one. So, it's turned into something good, and I think we're going to have a good future ahead of us.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want to have a good future out of this. I mean, you want to continue to go forward for longevity's sake. That's what attracted you to want to continue even coming over to Maine. Am I right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was in Colorado for 7 years operating out there, and, filled a bunch of hats in the business and pretty much helped start Apothecary Extracts out there. That's where I got the majority of my extraction knowledge and experience, and then was an owner in a dispensary and grow about a 200 lighter. It was just flooded, 200 lighter in Colorado. You were a tiny speck, and you really couldn't compete with the big dogs.
Really?
Nice.
It had gotten to that point.
No, it was tiny. I mean, it was nothing. There's 1,000 light grows on every corner out there, especially up in Denver. But
Oh, is that Jay? Yeah.
It's funny.
1,000 lighters all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I-70 North, Denver, that's 200
So
lighters, nothing.
Yeah. So we're still, scope is relative, I suppose, here, right?
But I don't know if it's like, I don't know if a 200 lighter, and I might be wrong, there's a good chance I've been wrong a lot, but I don't know if a 200 lighter will ever be considered small for the state of Maine, just because I don't know how much the state can support. Colorado's a lot bigger than Maine. That's just the truth of it. Everything's
5 times the population.
right. So I'm wondering, if that's ever going to be a thing where you see, I don't think you'll ever see as many 1,000 lighters in Maine as you did in Colorado or definitely not California and things like that. It's just, they just have too many people.
That's part of the beauty of it, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly. But Sean, I wanted to get back to you too, just about like DJ was talking about the process that you guys went through. Just didn't know if you had any insight you wanted to share just on the whole situation in general. And, obviously he said that you kind of brought it up, but where was the gears turning with you and Ryan behind the snes? Like, when did you guys mention?
No comment.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
No. Well, what DJ said was true. He had been in our office and kind of talked about you know, what they were trying to do and all that. And then he would leave, and Ryan and I would look at each other and be like, should we try something like that? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, you know, after looking at each other 20 times and asking each other if we should do something like that, we're like, wow.
Let's do it.
So let's, you know, if you're not, you know, if you're not growing, you're dying. I think one of our friends says to us all the time.
I mean, I am dying.
And so, I mean, we planted the seed, and then it kind of went from there. We were a good fit. We hired an attorney in Colorado that specializes in this.
Like cannabis acquisitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, he does everything cannabis related.
Yeah.
And so we hired, obviously he can't practice in Maine, but he could guide our, you know, our Maine attorneys. We actually, right next door at Isaacson and Raymond Dandote.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
You know, he could guide, he just guided everybody on this process, which was amazing.
yeah. Like a consultant in a sense.
He's done a lot of mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So we just wanted to make sure it was a total third party that could look at everything objectively and really look out for us.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and what better place to look than, you know, the frontier of Colorado. So DJ knew of Keenan, and we've been talking ever since. You know, this whole process in the Portland it took so long, I think, because of it was a big deal, a lot of moving parts. I mean, there was a lot of people involved.
It didn't just come with the lab, right? There was
No,
right.
it came with the lab, it came with the storefront, it came with the you know, the cultivation and all that. So
a lot going into it.
right. So it was a real big transition, and there was a lot of moving parts. And I mean, I don't know how far to get into depth, but I can give you the scope. You know, when we started to do it, our biggest attraction, other than the lab, because the lab was just icing on the cake. I mean, it was already running great. We had, you know, to be able to involve DJ was just a win-win.
Right.
But at the time, the city of Portland said, "Hey, we're going to allow 20 stores, period,
Right.
for the rest of."
Forever. Yeah,
world.
whatever they didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that interests us because we could be a part of that.
Get a license in a highly competitive and sought after market.
Right.
Yeah.
So the little hitch to the giddy up there was Coast to Coast owned that store. Well, part of the rules are you can't transfer the license and sell the license. You know, you could do some percentage over 5 years, and 25% every 5 years. So I mean, it would literally take you 20 years to acquire it. So we did a you know, and I'm not an attorney, but it was a membership interest purchase agreement type thing. So we essentially became the controlling members of the Coast to Coast entity
Yep.
as Rugged Roots South. So, like, I know there's grumblings, and people need to be cautious what they get on their computers and look up on who's agent and who's this agent and that and this the next thing, because granted, yeah, you look it up and you can see Coast to Coast agent, but now we're the controlling members of that. So, you know, that's there.
Yeah.
But go look and see who owns and who is the registered agent for Rugged Roots South. You know, that's right here in Lewiston, Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. So I just caution people that like to get online and search and figure stuff out for themselves. You got to know the whole story.
Yeah.
And then the city of Portland opened up the doors for everybody who applied. So now you're at like 36 stores or something like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've given yourself a little bit leg advance, because I've heard that the city of Portland can take like a year to approve.
it's-
A year plus.
licensing
Someone's
is
like
a
2
pain in the
years.
ass.
Some people are like for adult use. So
100%.
at least it's still benefit
So
a little bit.
So we were.
It's turning a corner, though. As
It
far
is.
as I know,
No, they're
it's
actually,
finally hitting.
Believe it or not, the city of Portland has been on my side of things, and everything we've done with the city of Portland has been amazing.
Good experience.
it's weird
very
because for
good.
such a big
Good.
municipality, you think it'd be a
they
headache.
they have processes to everything, and if you just get in there and you do your processes, if you know, we hired an architectural firm in Portland that knows this process well, so they can guide us along. Granted, anybody who walks into it not having these resources and
Right.
stuff like that, yeah,
Sure.
it could take forever.
A lot more
It's a
challenging.
lost,
Yeah.
Because I mean, go in and figure it out on your own is really something special.
Thanks for showing.
So
Really something special.
Really,
so we were teed up to have this whole thing done last year, November, December of last year. We were going to be signed, sealed, delivered, rock on.
Yeah.
And then something happened, and during the election, they had that Citizens Initiative or whatever it was called to lift the ban on the cap. Lift the cap
Yeah,
on
right.
stores in Portland. And so I put the brakes right to it. We put the brakes to it because it's like, well, the whole point of this was to
Be a part of.
be an exclusive store. And of course that passed. So now you can have 10 million stores in Portland as long as they meet all the criteria, whatever. So after renegotiating and rethinking and re-strategizing to make it immediate, we followed through with our initial thing with the membership purchase agreement as Coast to Coast being the controller and all that. So now we acquired and officially did everything as of April 9th of this year. But we've also applied to have, because you can apply now. Now everything is, we have new licenses being applied for. We can operate under the current licenses because of our membership purchase agreement.
but eventually that membership purchase agreement will go away and it will just
Right,
be
because
all
there's no
Rugged
cap.
South.
There's no cap.
Yeah.
So now it's going to turn into Sensimilla South.
Yep.
For the stores and Rugged Root South for the extraction and cultivation. It hasn't slowed us down. It's just the process in the background.
Yep.
So
So the South Central makes me think, is there a Rugged Roots North coming pretty soon?
well, that's what we consider this.
But even more north, is there a Bangor? A Bangor coming?
No, we supply a lot of people in Bangor.
I was about to say, that's where right. That's where you go.
We supply a lot of people in Bangor, and the people of Bangor have supported us, and I firmly believe in letting them do what they do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Actually, perfect time to say that 64 Washington Ave in Portland will be open in a couple of weeks. So you guys know.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have a date?
No, we don't.
Okay.
And if I did, I would
weeks.
certainly tell you.
A little bit before the 4th is what we can expect. Somewhere.
I would
around
hope
there?
so, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just waiting on the state to come down, and I mean, we've been through so many inspections that I'm trying to get everything as proper as possible before they get here.
If you've moved the desk in or the front desk, I think you're pretty damn close to being right where you want to be, right? You don't move that in early.
Sean's like,
Do
that's been in
you,
for 3 months.
desks and
Remember when that baby came in? I was like, what are we unwrapping here?
Well,
Which was awesome.
Well, actually, I wanted to hit up too that we're pretty
Sure.
proud of. So we're opening the first adult use store on that end, but also I want to talk about the pricing that we're coming out with.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we are going to be, as far as, with the vertical integration that we have, our pricing is going to be amazing.
You're going to be able to keep right on.
Yeah, we're going to do
very
$45
competitive.
raise. Concentrates, everything's in the 40.
Pretty cool though too, because if you think about it, I don't know the exact percentage of in-state versus out-of-state owned recreational shops, but I know that there's not a large portion of recreational shops that are owned by an in-state entity,
Exactly.
like yourself, and also being competitive with the out-of-state people because you have such a good in-state infrastructure. It's kind of even a more of like a fuck you to all the other people from outside that are really coming in and flooding. It's good to see a hometown group of people to be doing it.
I mean, we just literally took a pencil and a piece of paper and wrote down every little thing and said, hey, it costs us this much to get here, and an honest everyday living is increasing it by this much. And no one, so we're not dependent on somebody dictating to us. And then as a result, it's really a win-win for everybody.
Right.
The consumer wins, we win.
That's a competitive Portland price, if not under, right?
It is.
It's competitive with the medical market as a recreational
Well, that's what I meant.
provider,
Yeah, in
which is
comparison
really
to what
cool.
I had seen on the medical
there's
prices.
a lot more loopholes and taxes and so on and so forth with
You got to eat
going
it.
into adult use.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not astronomical. I mean, it's not like, $6,000 pounds aren't a thing.
Were you, were you almost
Yeah.
a little relieved when you guys actually got into it? Like, hey, a lot of the hype that you were hearing from the outside, once you actually get into the practicality of an
We
application.
knew going into it because, I mean, we sat and did the math.
Yep.
Like, you have to pay your excise tax on this, and you have to pay this tax, and this compliance, and this license, and blah, 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 blah.
Testing, all of
And if
that,
you
but-
divide that out amongst your whole year's worth of stuff, there's room there to make a fair wage and make sure all the employees get paid, and there's some left at the end to reinvest, and some left for us. I mean, we didn't do it for it's not UNICEF Cannabis Company. It's, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously we're here to make money and provide jobs and
That's the only way the
things
wheels
like
keep
that.
turning, you know. at that
Exactly.
point. So no
But
one's
we
doing
think
charity
it's a
work.
fair margin across the board, though. I mean, I think at that pricing, the consumer is still getting a grade A product that's not inflated to these crazy numbers just because it says adult use.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I'm
people
saying?
opening
Yeah.
the adult use stores that can't do anything for themselves, unfortunately, they're at the mercy of whatever somebody wants to sell it to them for.
Right.
You know, so they are getting, they're you know, they are being dictated to what they have to sell for because they have to make money too.
Right.
So we're just,
$5,000 pounds.
yeah, they are.
And that's the thing,
$5,000.
actually.
Will that end up?
Oh my God.
Will you be able to have, say, trading partners who you'll be able to include in that as well, who already kind of fit into that pricing model, or would that kind of tear it up too, though? That would.
You mean like to stay at the 45?
Yeah, so
Well,
you're
yes.
able to, because
Yes.
you figured out the numbers and you
There'll be
crunch,
some,
but
yeah.
you're still dealing with vendors who have X price and
We've always tried.
be
We've
able
always
to
tried those higher ticket items, and if the people like it, then the people
go
like
with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It'll
Right.
be priced more expensively than our stuff, which
Yeah.
is fine. There's tiers to things.
Yep.
And
So you're
But if
talking
it
about
sits
what
there
you
on the
can
shelf for
control
2
within a
months,
Rugged
then-
Roots
Yeah,
and
getting
within a
reordered.
it's
Cynthia
not,
brand.
it's not our fault.
Oh, Rugged Roots
The
brand.
consumer ultimately sets the price
He's right.
because they're either going to buy it or they're not.
Right.
And it's been easy for us to say to the vendor when they come to us and they're just like, you know, my product is worth this. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to buy it for your price that you want, and I'm going to put it on the shelf reflecting that price.
Mm-hmm.
The consumer will tell you if it's worth that or not.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's not. And that's no offense to anybody. It's just we've already put a quality product on the shelf for an affordable price. So they're like, well, why is this? Does it, you know, and take it out of the bag? Does it dance for me? You know what I mean? Or, well, you know, those things. And it's just like, it's hard. It's hard, man. There's very few draws to it that have just been like, all right, I can inflate this price and it's going to go. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, in the end, I think, and again, I only know the Lewiston Auburn market well.
Right.
And I know
Sure.
how we're flower smokers, and they know their flower. And you got to really have something that's going to be just astronomical for them to spend. You know what I mean?
A fair amount on.
That
right,
is,
like when you
yeah.
start-
And you know, I don't know.
What's too high a price right now for an eighth?
For an eighth? 60.
For the LA market.
60 a lot.
60.
Yeah, a lot.
Seen
for
60 a
the rec.
lot?
For
Yeah,
adult use.
for adult use, yeah, 60 for sure. I mean, on the medical, I think the highest we've seen is what, 45 maybe?
Yeah, something like that. It seems like everyone's kind of in the same ballpark for medical.
Sure.
But 65 seems to be the going rate for adult use right now.
It
Everywhere.
does,
So,
and
So you're going
that's-
to be able to cut that down by an average of 20 if you
Yep.
want to do comparative shopping.
I mean, I would say most are in the 50-55 range.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some up there in the 60-65 range, but there's nobody in 45.
There isn't, and I think this, and you all know our product, and it's not like we're reflecting it because there's an abundance in anything. Again, this was always Sean and I's thinking from the start. We like good business, we like good relationships, and we says, you know, you want longevity within the business to have a quality product
yeah.
for a reasonable price, and that's how the state of Maine works.
Yeah.
And you've, speaking quality, you created your own little menu going on over there.
Well,
That's been a lot of fun.
yes.
You talked about that before.
And that's us, and that's where we kind of like we've seen the rest of everybody
I don't want to get
else.
out of the market thing entirely. I'm
So
sorry.
yeah, I'll go a little bit on varietals.
Sure.
Just as far as, let's say, for instance, you see a lot of growers, they follow the trends. You know, whatever's hot, well, okay, I'm going to grow that next. And we wanted to start getting away from that and starting doing proprietary strains and really like crossing things within house. You know, I have a great relationship with Melting Pot, and he does amazing things for us on that end. And I have a great relationship with guys like La Coca and things that they're really pushing the plant forward, that we can start doing things in house. Because, you know, obviously replication is flattery, but at the same time, I'd rather just keep, you know, moving ahead. You see ice cream cake being the big draw now, right? Well, we were doing that a long time ago, and we want to move past that.
Yeah.
So we want to keep evolving, and I don't want it to be, hey, you know, we want to evolve into things that we can do specifically for us that somebody can't just get a cut of online. You know what I mean? So that's why we've decided that we like the genetics of ice cream cake. We like the genetics of the Sunday driver. Let's see if we can make something that we like from each of it and push the plant forward.
No, I thought that was pretty cool, and I saw it too. I was like, well, you took your staples, and then so let's just fucking cross the staples and make better ones, you know? And I think that was, I saw it, and I was like, that's pretty cool, you know? Because I think just like you realize after 3 years of ice cream cake and stuff, while it's moving into trend for everyone else, it's moving out for you guys, and you got to bring something else in. And so
you did. The market is seen. That's hard too, because from a grower's perspective, to have a new varietal in, to do the hunt, to do the cross, that takes a lot of time. And it's so hard for the consumer to come in because they're like, man, this is great. This is awesome weed. I love it. What else you got? You're like, but that took me a year to create. You know, that's the problem that evolves so much. It's time consuming to do an appropriate hunt.
Risky too. You know, you never know if it can cost you a lot at the end of it if everything goes south. So.
It really can. And that's the other thing too. Some of these smaller gardens, it's hard for them to do those types of things because, as you know, when you're hunting, you're going to find one keeper, and then you have all these other phenos that are just not great. What do you do with that? You know, so that's the problem. Like, we've been able to kind of like, all right, we'll label this into different pre-rolls and they can try it. You know, we have been able to do it at a small enough scale where it's really not hurting us, but I get it from their perspective too. They're like, hey, I need that to pay the bills. I need that to do these things. So
would you look at plant growth, especially now with the concept or idea that you're doing that canopy where you're only going with 1 footers in particular rooms? Can you look for different qualities within phenomes now because it doesn't reach like it's not going to achieve like a different kind of maturity?
Well, I think that for us, we have
stages.
You
Am I right on that?
Yep. You can, but at the same time, for us, it's like I'm pretty set in a program. Like, we like to go 9 weeks, so that's part of the box. If she doesn't check that box, she's out. You know, there's boxes that I go through when we're looking for that, you know, that particular, you know, pheno when we're going through. You know, it'd be obviously taste, smell, effect, which keeps getting lost, by the way. You know what I mean? Those types of things that we'll all go through. So I have my criteria that I'm looking for to find that perfect. Which I don't know if there's anything perfect out there, but the one that people are looking for.
Yeah, no, I think it's always about the representative flavor profiles. If it's already in existence, you want it to hold those characteristics. Yes. But if you're creating your own, then it's about what are you creating?
Yes.
You know, and so you get to explore that. That's pretty fun.
It's the best part of the job.
New terrain, new territory.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the best part of the job. Think about you're creating something. You you get to name it, and then you put it out and see the feedback from the general public.
When do we get a name on one of these strains? When's that happening?
Okay, huh? Well, let's
Sean, make it happen, baby.
That could be in the works for sure.
A nickname of some sort where we only know what it means.
that could be in the works, and I think that
Air Bear.
Chief Little Big Leg.
That hurts. It's been hurting for years.
So
that came right to my mind when you said name of strain. I was like, Chief Little Big Leg.
Oh man.
Sorry.
So
that's how it goes down in my life.
Oh man. So we want to keep pushing that as a proponent. We know that's important. That drives the market. We have some things coming out on the adult use end. Like I said, the ice cream sundae is about to be released. The banana runts is about to be released. Some of these ones that were pretty special to us, and you know, we get to work, you know, with Lonnie from Soulfire. He sent us a bunch of the beans. He took our cut of Bahama Mama just recently, so we searched his. We found a certain pheno that was amazing. If everybody's seen Bahama Mama, he took it back and he just bred his whole 2021 lineup with it. So that's it's the rugged cut with whatever else he crossed it with, which is a lot of different varietals. Wow. So that's going to be excited to see that come out as well.
Sean's looking at you like, do we have royalties on all those seeds?
No, and it was
It's a big honor.
No, that's really
it
cool.
is.
Yeah, definitely is.
Especially somebody from Seattle, and we're all the way in Maine, and we're collaborating across the country, and that just shows how we're trying to. You know,
these are how trends like cakes and cookies and different things of the past have always kind of went into. I mean, so you get to explore a whole new.
It's the
Who
fun
knows
of it.
what could be created off that?
Well, look, from a consumer standpoint, walking through the door and you see something new on the menu with these creative names, and then you see the lineage of it, and you're like, wow, you know what I mean? That's what geeks us all out.
Throwing that.
It's extremely craft too.
Yeah.
If you think about it,
Sure.
for a state that loves craft things, it's nothing more craft than taking your kind of selection and interbreeding it within each other. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's going to continue to be a big hit, and I feel like you'll probably have some other people hop on that same train and start doing the same thing because it's very Maine.
Yes, yes, and I think that's great because now we have individuality happening within.
yeah, for sure.
You know,
Right,
and that's
right.
what I want. I don't want like right now you see a lot of it, and you're going to go on every corner store, and everybody's going to have the same menu. I don't find. I don't know. For me, I don't geek out on that. I want to go into these different shops because I love that we have all these different shops, and you can go over. Let's say you go over to Cure, and you're like, wow, their menu is completely different than ours.
Yep.
And then on the other side of the fence, we have ours. And now, and what really happens is the consumer shops at both.
Yep.
And that's how everybody eats. You know, if it's all the same menu, then it gets into price battles. That's a bad look. I don't want that for our state. I really don't. I'm not looking forward to saturation and the home of the $50 ounce or any of that bullshit. I want it to
Colorado, man.
exactly. So
Race to the bottom.
it's on us to keep driving a quality market because we know in Colorado, guess what stayed? The quality. So let's do this as a group now, you know, and I think that can happen instead of some of these people, what we're finding out with crop steering and all these different growing methods, that the information's out there that people are going to know how to grow. What's going to separate everybody from everybody is the genetics. So that's where it's at.
Yeah. And not only that, too, I think the culture, which you guys mentioned upon, like Sensimilla, Rugged Roots, you guys have done a really good job of trying to develop that. Like, you know, when you walk in the door, you know you're at Sensimilla. You know, it's not like you're just in like some sterile environment or some sterile dispensary.
Yes.
Or, you know, you're getting like, and that's going to play a big role, I think, because every new store diminishes the value of a current one. And the only way to separate each other is going to be through good customer service and good culture. So
Culture is huge. You want that whole experience when you walk through the door. And I think a lot of these smokers, and it's all different generations, as we see now having stores. I mean, to have these people come in now and say, that's my place. You know, that's what I feel familiar with. I love walking through the door, knowing the bud tender. They know me. They know what I want and all these different things. And I think that's what made Maine so special. It's not just cookie cutter. You come on the corner and you stand in line and it's like you're at the doctor's office. No, it's like being at Cheers. They all know your name. You know what I mean? And that's what we want. I think that's what we've always pushed for. Be personable, really get to know the people, because at the end, we're still holistic healing here. The plant is healing these people. Let's get to know them on that level as well. You know?
Yeah, you came out. I mean, I think just by the location in the first place, we knew it was going to be a neighborhood. That was the most attractive thing about it, was it not? I remember because looking at a couple places, and the neighborhood concept and idea was first and foremost that trumped almost anything else.
100%.
So, yeah, having that, being immersed.
Yeah, I was in a perfect spot because it was a low-key spot in a high-density area. So it worked out perfect, you know?
No, that's weird because I feel like it makes total sense when you like break it down. When cannabis first came out, even still to this day, I feel like a lot of people drifted to Sensimilla because it was low key. So it's not like, you know, there were some stores you drive by, and even me, like being, you know, don't really care that much, but it's like, shit, I don't know if I want, you know, who's gonna, my kid that I coach or their parent gonna drive by and be like, hey, we're at the pot shop, you know, and all that stuff. So I feel like in the beginning when the stigma was high, it was a great spot for it because, like you said, low key enough where people felt comfortable getting out of their car there, but also right in the heart of downtown.
Right. And how awesome it is we're breaking down those walls.
We're not even close to that anymore, are we? People come up here and they're like, this is freedom, isn't it?
I mean, imagine that though. At first, from where we were at the beginning to the stigma you're talking about, people like looking over to where we are now. I think that's pretty awesome to see, and we all did this. It's like
That's got to make it feel like you made the right choice too in doing, you know, because you could. There were a lot of guys, and there have been a lot of cultivators in the state who exist still kind of in both areas, a gray area or even a straight up black area.
And God bless them.
Yeah.
You know, we know where we came from. This is a grassroots movement, and I love everybody on all level. I want them to succeed on all levels. You know what I mean? We understand what it feels like to be in whatever area they're in. You know what I'm saying? So for them to keep doing their thing, this is what this was founded on.
Yeah.
So God bless them. I wish them nothing but the best to do their thing.
Yeah.
Because
but this is your path now.
This is my path now
this is what you
because
guys
of like
are.
we talked about. Like I owe this to my people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For them to, it just, to me, in the end, if I got caught up on something, dude, it would be ridiculous. You know? I really do feel like I owe them.
2021 is no longer the black market either. It's called the traditional market. I was educated the other day. I thought I was going to get someone jumping down my throat over it. I said, okay, I will. Yeah, traditional market. That is the new wording of it.
Oh my
So,
God. Is a marijuana plant still female?